Okay, so tonight we have Eleanor Ballester, who is currently incarcerated in the Las Colinas detention center in California, and she is going to be sharing a little bit about her story. Hi, Elle, how are you?
Hi, and feel welcome to call me Ellie, okay?
Okay, great. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about your case?
Sure, okay. Well, I am a mom of five beautiful children, three sons and two daughters. I've been mostly a stay-at-home mom for the last 11 years, the primary caretaker of all of my children always. I guess you would call me like a crunchy mom. I like homeschooling, I like natural foods, natural remedies. This situation really got started for me when I decided to file for divorce after a bit of an abusive marriage. I want to be careful what I say here. And things were going okay. We had actually agreed to many things, and we were going to try to stay out of the court as much as possible. However, due to some, I guess, unforeseen circumstances and me moving on and getting to a new relationship, my ex-husband started to get very jealous. He started having strange behavior. My youngest daughter started coming back with horrible vaginal rashes. She would cry when she went pee after every time she saw him. Just very strange and unfortunate happenings, I guess is the best way to say it. So I became very concerned. I kept trying to work with him, trying to avoid going into the court as much as possible. We tried to work on that privately for like a year. It was after I was getting married and the court found out that my current husband has a couple assets and owns some property that things really got out of control. That's when my ex-husband's divorce attorney brought a lot of controversy into the court. They started caring a lot about financial disclosures. We had a whole, what I would call a illusory trial over an Instagram story that I posted that my ex-husband thought he needed a restraining order. He ended up winning that trial from the perspective of what order was put into place. However, I later found out that it was his next-door neighbor that was the judicial officer on that case and the one that gave him that restraining order. I went to the court and proceeded to get a recusal of her for the improper personal relationship going on and to have that order voided and vacated, and went through all the lawful steps necessary to take care of that. Obviously, my ex-husband and his attorney weren't so happy about that. They didn't want to give up what they believed to be their silver bullet that was going to help gain some sort of financial increase on their side. So over the last year, I have done everything possible to protect my children. They were threatening to commit suicide. They were running away from his house. They were crying, distraught, begging not to go to him. He was scaring them. He was drinking a lot. Finally, we had some resolve where it was pretty obvious that all custody orders were void. We've never had a divorce decree. We always have tried to have a custody sharing plan that we worked out privately together, which is our right. I let him know I was going to be making up some time with the children. He never responded. He never objected. The children and I went on vacation, and on that vacation, I was arrested. Federal marshals broke into the Airbnb we were staying in. They assaulted me. They assaulted the children. They dragged them across the concrete, and I have now been in jail unlawfully in jail for 9 months with first originally a $2 million bail and now no bail. And that brings us pretty much up to date.
Wow. Okay, so that's a lot. And I'm so sorry that you've been going through all of this, and it's absolutely insane that this is allowed to happen. And just some questions, just to clarify. So, your parental rights have never been terminated, correct?
Absolutely not. Nope.
And has the state ever had any? Has the state ever initiated any neglect petitions or tried to terminate your parental rights or anything like that?
Nope, if anything, always on the record, every party, including my ex-husband, has said that I'm a wonderful mother. The kids excel under my care. They have incredible grades. They're very healthy and happy when they're with their mother.
And at the time that you were arrested, did you have, based on the most recent order that they had issued, had it designated that there was joint custody at that time, or did he technically have sole
So
custody?
him and I have never had any valid or proper custody order through any court. We never have. We've always had our own private contract. The court has adopted our own private contract and just agreed to it temporarily. However, when I was traveling with the children, I guess my ex had gone in and held a couple ex partes without noticing me and without serving me. And so he believed he had orders and he used those. And on those orders, I guess they said that I had no legal right to my children, whatever that allegedly means. However, those orders are illusory and they were never served to me, and he did that to be malicious.
So he had an ex parte hearing that you were not there for, and at the end of it, a judge granted what he was asking in that hearing.
Yes, yes. So he did, from what I have seen based off the discovery, he went in and had a couple ex parte hearings complaining. He did note that he didn't serve me and that he didn't contact me about them, and yet he still moved forward and proceeded, and these judicial officers gave him whatever he wanted. I wasn't there.
So he did this after you had already left?
Yes.
So when you left initially for the vacation, those orders didn't exist.
We've never had any valid custody order. He had a custody order attached to a void restraining order that his next door neighbor gave him. We've never had any final divorce decree or any final custody orders in our case.
And so the custody order that was issued in the restraining order case, what did that judge order?
She ordered that I would have the children every other weekends, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that he would have primary custody otherwise. But that order obviously was void.
So she said primary custody, not sole custody?
I believe she said sole legal custody in there, and then the custody sharing schedule that I said.
And were you present at the hearing for that restraining order?
I was present at that hearing at that time. However, I did not have the knowledge that the judicial officer was his next door neighbor or had a personal relationship with him.
And once you became aware of those conflicts of interest, you filed for disqualification. And what was the court's response?
Yep. At first, the judicial officer lied and said that she had no idea where he lived and no relationship. Then I provided proof, like her Facebook post talking to my daughter's kindergarten teacher, the fact that she signed a order with his address and his name on it. So she would have obviously known he was her next door neighbor from that. She lived in that neighborhood for over 20 years. Once I provided that information on the record, she recused herself.
She recused herself on what date was that?
October 5th, 2023.
And how many months was that after the restraining order was issued?
She had issued the restraining order in June of 2023. So I guess, like, what is that, 4 months?
Yeah, so 4 months later, she officially recused herself, right?
Yes.
So,
yes, she did.
And so from my understanding, when a judge recuses themselves, all their orders are then null and void.
That would be what the law says. However, that's not necessarily what attorneys practice, which is very different. So the law does say that. Because her relationship existed before she came on the case, all of her orders are void ab initio nunc pro tunc. However, nobody was willing to actually follow the law in that situation.
So you tried to notice the court, or did you try to file anything to that regard?
Yes, I noticed the court. I filed a lawsuit against her. I filed a case in the federal court. I noticed everyone. I sent notice to everyone.
And did you feel like they started to retaliate more once you sued them in federal court?
Absolutely. They went all out. They tried to hold hearings like twice a week. I had just had a baby as well. So I had a baby in July of 2023. I was trying to breastfeed. I had 2 children under 2 and also my older 3. So 5 children at this time, very little. They were pulling me into court twice a week, just doing anything they could to steamroll me, exhaust me. And ultimately, I am the petitioner in this case, so I dismissed my divorce petition, which I lawfully was able to do because this case has never actually gone to a trial. I removed the court's jurisdiction called an alternative dispute resolution, as well as private mediation, which they have to honor in the state of California, or California state. And so I did all of that, and then instead of actually following the law, that's when they went in and had these secret ex partes and had these secret orders and then had me arrested.
So I've been hearing a lot in the news how actually that there's a big lawsuit now in California about how the courts in many of the counties do not have transcripts and court reporters in the courtrooms. And so during all these hearings, were you able to get transcripts of all of them?
No, that is common. In family court, they do not have transcripts, and they do not allow recordings in most cases. However, I did get transcripts for a decent amount of them. We had to pay for a court reporter, though.
So for the restraining order hearing and all of the custody hearings, you never got transcripts?
So the restraining order hearing, I do have all the transcripts. That is actually under appeal, even though that order is void. I'm still going through the process of having it completely appealed and voided by the appellate court so that nobody can continue to try to use it to arrest me or whatever they're doing right now. So all those transcripts are on the record in the appellate court.
And I know you mentioned earlier that your ex-husband and you had an agreement between the two of you that was regarding with the children. And did you guys ever submit that to the court to make it official in the court case, or no?
We did, yes. We actually signed and notarized it. We submitted it to the courts. We talked about it, and 3 times we went to court. This call will be terminated in 2 minutes. Mediation, and in that mediation, the court adopted our own private contract, and they were really not intervening in it until I got remarried and my husband had financial assets. And as soon as they knew that he had properties, it was like all of a sudden they were coming for us.
And they knew because they had you fill out a financial disclosure, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like that's a common thing that people say is that once they look at that financial disclosure and see assets, they become like vultures.
Yeah, no, they had completely left us alone because my ex-husband and I had a private agreement. And so the state actually cannot intervene in private contracts. That's in the Constitution. And so they know that. But as soon as I had to reveal that my current husband had assets, it was exactly what you said. They became vultures. They tried anything to get me into that court to make me spend money. This call will be terminated in 1 minute. Try to get their hands on these assets, and as soon as I was arrested, they filed for $650,000 of a lien that they wanted to put on one of the properties that my husband owns. So it's pretty obvious.
Wow. Okay, well, why don't we take a 2-minute break and then you can call back and we can pick up where we left off?
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Your call has been accepted. Hey.
Hey. Okay, so we were just saying about the agreement, and you said that you had it officially in the case. So, and you were you were the plaintiff in your case, right?
You mean in the divorce? Yeah, I was the petitioner.
Okay, and
I
so
the divorce.
And when was the divorce finalized?
It wasn't finalized until March 27, 2023, which we did through bifurcation. Him and I had been separated for quite some time, but he didn't really want to get divorced, and so he was pushing and shoving and trying not to get divorced the whole time. But ultimately, we signed a bifurcation.
And there was a final order that your joint agreement that you guys submitted was going to be the custody.
We've never had any final order in that case ever. And that's the wild thing about me even being arrested. Everything has always been temporary. We've never had a final order in that entire case, ever. The only final order, I guess you could say, would be the bifurcation because we both signed it and agreed. So it was a private contract, essentially.
But did that agreement that you had include the provisions about custody?
So the agreement that we had is just basically, it's called the mediation report, and it was just adopted as a temporary custody. And so when we bifurcated the marriage, it was literally only regarding marital status. So we just bifurcated marital status, and we still have never had a final order regarding anything else in the entire marriage.
And the private agreement that you guys had, it said that the kids would visit with the dad on certain days, or?
Yeah, in our private agreement, which we agreed to in December of 2020 and we executed without any issues for 3 years, was that the children would reside primarily with me from Sunday evening at 6 p.m. until Friday afternoon after school at 3 p.m., and that he would have weekly visitation every weekend, every Friday at 3 p.m. until Sunday at 6 p.m. So primarily, I had primary custody, and actually most of the time for those 3 years, he didn't even execute on all of his custody or visitation. He often only used about 18%.
And so on the times when he wasn't exercising or following the agreement, did you ever try to take him on contempt or go back to court, or were you just taking the responsibility and taking care of the children?
No, absolutely not. I didn't want to have a court battle. I don't believe in contempt. I don't believe in dragging people through the dirt. Everything I tried to handle with him in private mediation. We had a co-parenting mediator. Even when the controversy started in January 2023, he was really upset. We went into a mediation. He was demanding full custody. The mediator told him no. As soon as we got out of that meeting, I was actually a little scared for my life. He was acting so erratic and scary. I reached out to my attorney. I thought about getting a restraining order against him. And he just kept with the badgering after that. And instead, I asked to go to private mediation with him. I asked to go see our therapist. He agreed to it. But then right before our therapy appointment, he hit me with the restraining order that he had went and sought against me.
Wow, and it's kind of crazy, like the level of how many resources that they use to try to like come after you with these charges. And I know of other people who were in situations where they had orders from Connecticut that said that they had to, return the children to the other parent, and the parents went to other states such as Florida, for example, and were told that they couldn't. The police told them, "Oh, it's a civil matter. There's nothing we can do about it." And because the children are not in this state anymore, you're basically screwed. So it's like the fact that they like went to such a great lengths to like try to like track you down and like forcibly like extradite you, and that must have cost a lot of resources and money for them. And for what? Like for custodial interference on a questionable order that's more than likely void due to a recusal.
Well, also on top of that, like I was actually cooperating a lot with my ex-husband. I was sending him global settlement agreements during this time. I was asking that we have, once again, that we privately settle it, a global settlement, close all divorce issues, that we go to family therapy, all of us, to resolve these internal family issues. I was sending him these global settlement offers. So, I mean, I'm really unsure of why the state found it necessary to intervene in a private divorce mediation that was happening at that time, or come and assault my children and kidnap. They basically kidnapped them, and then they held them in a interrogation room for about 4 hours, and then they filmed their father coming to that interrogation room, and the children screaming and crying, hiding under a table from him, begging to see their mother, crying to the police, "Please listen to us, we're scared of him." And this is all on their own body-worn cameras that they've provided as discovery.
And you've seen these videos?
I have.
And so do you still have concerns for your children's safety and the care of the father?
Absolutely. I mean, I know that he, at this point, my oldest daughter, has found a cell phone to try to text family and friends and tell them, he won't even tell them what happened to their mother. Is their mother okay? She's so sad. She's so scared. What's going on? But at this point, I know that there's not much I can do, since the state put a protective order between me and the children and leading to this trial. So I'm not able to contact them at all, and all I know is that they're alive. They've been going to school. I hope that school is feeding them. I hope that they have some adults that care, and I always have faith that God's taking care of them.
And so they're also being isolated from the rest of your family, like your parents and everybody else. They're also being isolated from.
My parents were allowed. He allowed my parents to visit them. A couple of weeks ago, my parents came and they got to take him to a movie, and so they saw them. However, I know my children, and they're very scared. They don't want their father to get angry or anything worse to happen to me. They were there when this happened, when the arrest happened, obviously, because they were part of it. They were crying. If you hear my sweet daughter, she's 11 now, if you ever get to watch that video that the police took after they kidnapped them, she's begging them. She's begging them, please, please, no one's listening to me. Please save me. And, you know, I mean, how terrifying is that for a little girl to ask for help and then just be shoved with this man that you're scared of and not know what happened to your mommy and no one will tell you and you're so scared. It's like Stockholm syndrome.
And does your ex have connections to law enforcement or the government?
Yeah, he's a naval officer, so he does. And throughout this entire case, he's had an admiral, a friend of his family, an admiral, a retired two-star admiral who showed up at all these court dates, who tried to testify against me, who's pulled every string possible, who's threatened to have me arrested, who sent many threatening emails to my father. So I guess that helped him a lot in his endeavor.
Okay, and so once you were arrested and you were held in Florida on the $2 million bond, did they ask you if you were going to waive extradition, or did they?
They did. They did ask me if I was going to waive. I didn't sign. I filed a writ of habeas corpus, and I went through that process in Florida, but I was still met with a lot of resistance. So I did my part. I went to the Supreme Court of Florida. I even went to the United States Supreme Court, but by the time I got to the United States Supreme Court, they basically were extraditing me.
And so, what was the process like being extradited? Did they put you on a plane?
Yeah, they put me on a plane. They showed up. I told them this was under duress. I didn't agree. I had a pending writ of habeas, and in the state of Florida, you can't extradite somebody when they have a pending writ of habeas. They did it anyways. They put me in shackles. They gave me a sweatshirt to hide the handcuffs, and they flew me from Orlando, Florida to San Diego.
Was it like a private plane?
Nope, it was regular. We flew Alaskan.
So you were just sitting there next to regular people?
Yeah, they had us in the back row. I mean, there was two, actually, district attorneys are the ones that came and got me. So two district attorneys came and got me, which is also strange because it would normally be police or sheriffs, but it was district attorneys.
From Florida or Cali?
From California.
Wow. It almost seems like personal in a way. And I know you mentioned the judge is like neighbors with your ex too.
Yes, she is. Well, I did, or I guess the defendant did file a couple civil rights lawsuits against several of the judicial officers and the district attorney and the San Diego County sheriffs. And so, yeah, it definitely is personal, I would say.
And I think you have like maybe like 140,000 followers on TikTok, and I know you have a pretty big social media following. Do you think that some of the topics that you were making videos about were putting you on their radar for a while?
Potentially, because a lot of what they've brought up in court or complained about is that I have a large social media following. They try to use that as a reason why I can't have a bond or a bail. I mean, really, I wasn't talking about much other than being the victim of rape, which is true, and then being a victim of the family court system and some of these attorneys and their moral turpitude and malpractice, I guess.
And so when you would try to argue about your First Amendment rights, what would their response be?
So really, I haven't brought up the First Amendment right very much. I mean, that has a lot to do with what happened in that restraining order because my ex-husband got it over an Instagram story that didn't name him. I didn't send to him. I didn't tag him. And I was merely speaking about being the victim of rape, in which he was the rapist, right? However, I didn't tell anybody he was the rapist. He just knew. And he was actually blocked from my social media at the time. And so he shouldn't have been watching it anyways, but he did, and he found a way, and then he took screenshots and went into the court and used that to get a restraining order from his next-door neighbor.
So he admitted that he was stalking you and used proof of his stalking you to try to say that you somehow caused him fear, I guess?
No, he didn't call. He wasn't afraid. No, that wasn't. He actually said on the record word that he wasn't afraid of me. He knew I wasn't going to hurt him. He knew I wouldn't call him. He knew I wouldn't come near him. But for 24 hours, he was disturbed. It disturbed his peace because some of his friends might have seen my Instagram story. So, like, he felt disturbed is what he said.
So is feeling disturbed grounds to get a restraining order in California?
Allegedly, at least according to his next door neighbor, it was.
Because usually, like, they'll say, like, you have to prove, like, coercive control, or you have to prove, like, a risk of physical harm, and usually there's, like, a pretty high bar, but do you feel like people get them granted for not very serious reasons?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know what harm it came to him from me intentionally making sure he didn't see what I wrote and speaking about being the victim of rape in which he raped me. I didn't send it to anyone. I didn't send it to him. I didn't send it to his nothing. And so I don't think he suffered any consequences from the post other than the fact that he used it and brought it to court, and then we had to do a trial, and he spent a lot of money to get his restraining order. I think like $120,000 he spent. And so I'm sure that cost him a pretty penny, but it was unnecessary. He didn't have to do that.
And so you've been locked up without bond now for almost 9 months, right?
Yes.
And when you got back to California after being extradited, did they say why they were revoking the $2 million bond?
Nope, he just revoked it. This call will be terminated in 2 minutes. When I said that I was going to be self-representing, he immediately revoked my bond. And then I tried to ask for bond over and over again. They kept just denying it. I went into what I would call a illusory bond hearing with this public defender who I've already fired. Tried to get a bond then or to go out on ankle monitor, and she was like, well, there is the risk of great bodily injury, which is not a risk at all. I've never been accused of that. Nobody has said that about me ever. And so then they used that as a reason to deny me bond.
And when you said you were going to be self-represented, did they then immediately appoint you a public defender?
No, they didn't. They actually gave me like 2 weeks, and I had a few court dates. At one of the court dates, the judicial officer revealed that he was married to the district attorney, and then he asked me to sign a disclosure to allow him to remain on the case. I objected and said I didn't agree to his conflict of interest, and this call will be terminated in 1 minute. Because I objected to it and wouldn't agree to his conflict of interest, he withdrew my what they call pro per or self-representation, and then ordered a public defender be on my case.
Okay, are you able to call back to finish talking?
Yes.
Okay, all right, call back. Okay, bye.
Dial 1 now to reject it. Your call has been accepted. Hi.
Hey, okay, so where did we leave off? So you said that the judge that is handling the criminal case, what was his name?
His name was Evan Patrick Kervin, and he revealed that he was married to a district attorney, and then he wanted me to sign a disclosure to agree to his conflict of interest, and when I would not sign that or agree with him or allow him to move forward with the preliminary hearing because of his conflict of interest, he revoked my status as being self-represented.
Okay, so just to make sure I got that, the prosecutor who is prosecuting you in the criminal case is married to the judge who's presiding over the criminal case, right?
Not the direct one who was prosecuting me, but her colleague. So he was saying he was married to a district attorney who worked with her, and in fact, he was married to the district attorney in charge of extradition, and I had just been extradited.
Okay, so he brought that up knowing that it was a conflict, asked you to sign off on him continuing to stay on the case. You said no, refused to sign, and then he retaliated by appointing you with a public defender against your will.
Yes.
And what's the public defender's name?
So first, actually, they assigned me a public defender. I think last name is Macias, Macias. He actually refused to take the case because he agreed that it was an issue. He did not think that the judicial officer was doing the right thing by revoking my status. And so he would only appear as an amicus curiae, and he basically was like, he was saying to the judge, he's like, this is wrong. I'm not going to do it. So he would not take the case. And then they ended up assigning somebody somebody with extreme moral turpitude who is a liar, who induces fraud. I'm guessing that's her specialty, and her name is Alexandra Valentine.
And so, Alexandra Valentine, has she done anything? Like, has she shown you the discovery that they have from the state?
So she came and showed me the video upon my demand, and I did get to watch the video of my children. That was, I guess, a good step that she did. However, when I asked for any other discovery, she refused to give it to me. I asked to see the warrant. Oh, I have it on my computer, but I can't print it out. Oh, okay. I asked to see any order that allowed the federal marshals to remove my children or to hold them in an interrogation room. Oh, yeah. I'll show it to you one day. So she has refused to show me anything, actually, since she showed me that video.
Because the video doesn't show proof of you doing a crime. The video has nothing to do with their proof against you.
No, if anything, the video helps my side. The video just shows that my children wanted to be with me and that they were scared of their father. And it just shows the malicious, how malicious the district attorney is being and how malicious my ex-husband is being.
And so, has she ever once tried to advocate for you to get out, for you to have a bail?
No, she has not. In fact, only at that bail hearing where she read and I guess allegedly for like a minute said I should have a ankle monitor because I have no record, but then immediately brought up the risk of great bodily injury and made sure that the judge could then use that as a reason to deny me bail.
And when she says,
and when I called her out on that behavior, she got up in my face and laughed and said, "You're delusional, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, let me pull the transcript then from that court date because I know exactly what you said." She said, "You don't need a transcript. You're crazy. Something's wrong with you." I said, "No, I do need the transcript, and I want to read it because I know exactly what you did, and I know exactly why you said that."
And so when she's saying great bodily harm, is she saying to people or to yourself?
She was using, because the higher charge that they put on me, the PC 207, is a kidnapping charge. And so she was saying that they can imply that there could be great bodily injury from that charge. So she just said, well, this charge carries the risk of that. However, she knows in my case that doesn't apply, nor have I been accused of anything similar to that or any reason at all that there would be any concern for great bodily injury to anyone. I've never even hurt an ant, pretty much.
Yeah, because I just looked it up here, and it says that you can only be held without bail if they believe that you pose a public safety risk. So you can't pose a public safety risk just because they use the word bodily harm in a statute that you're being charged with. You have to actually be able to be a threat to the public, which you'd never been a threat to the public.
Right, and so that actually isn't even in the statute that I'm being charged with. There's nothing about bodily injury in the statute that I'm being charged with, and in either of them. So that is not applicable to my case, and she literally only brought it up because I guess there's something in the California Constitution that allows them to deny bail if they use that wording. I figured this out. I paid attention. I studied it myself, and that's why she was so angry that I wanted to pull the transcript, because I knew it was planned. She knew what she was doing, and she said it on purpose.
Yeah, and it says here that it says clear and convincing evidence must prove that detention is necessary to protect public safety in order to hold you without bail. So,
yeah.
And have you've tried many times to ask for subsequent hearings for bail and habeas corpus? What other things have you tried recently?
I filed many motions. I have filed habeas corpus. I have filed a removal notice. I have filed appeals. I have filed for bail in the federal court. I have filed motions to dismiss. I filed a writ of mandamus in the appellate court. I have gone through all avenues to have basically due process and have the right to bail and have the right to a fair trial and have the right to a speedy trial, and have the right to actually see a warrant, which they've never had.
And like you said, when you ask, you've tried on the record to fire the Valentine lady, and what do when you try to fire her?
So that's what they call the Marston hearing, have the Marson hearing, they deny it. And then the second time I fired her again on the record, we had a Marson hearing, and then they called a PC 1368. So they said she challenged my competency. I then had to sit in jail for an extra 6 weeks, wait to talk to a doctor who then decided whether or not I was competent to stand trial. She said that yes, I was competent, and then the case was able to move forward. So Alexandra not only has retaliated multiple times, when after, I guess it was actually the third time that I fired her, she did the competency thing. She sent my husband an email saying she was going to heavily medicate me for 2 years in a state prison hospital, I guess, and literally threatening me because I don't want her to be on my case.
And what are they trying to get you to do now? They want you to plead guilty, right?
Yeah, they want a guilty plea for a child abduction charge. Essentially, they want the defendant to plead guilty and say that she maliciously withheld, or kept the children from their lawful custodian, and take a felony charge for that, and then do 18 months of probation, an ankle monitor, and have a protective order between her and her children. And at the end of the 18 months, if she completes probation, then she can withdraw her plea and plead to a misdemeanor. However, they've only written that on like white piece of paper and shown it, I think, to appear fair. But whenever I've gone to the courtrooms and attempted to sign something, they won't actually provide me with any contract or any plea deal or any bargain to sign.
Yeah, and I'm just looking here, and it says that Section 1382 of the California Penal Code 1382A says that unless good cause to the contrary is shown, an action shall be dismissed in the following cases. In a felony case, when the defendant is not brought to trial within 60 days of their arraignment or reinstatement of criminal proceedings. And it says that the exceptions to that are, A, you waive the 60-day trial requirement. Did you waive your 60? Okay. Or B, the defendant requests or consents to the setting of a trial date beyond the 60-day period. So it says if the defendant requests or consents to the setting of a trial date beyond the 60-day period in the absence of an express general time waiver from the defendant, or upon withdrawal of the time waiver, the court shall set a trial date. Whenever a case is set for trial beyond the 60-day period by request or consent, expressed or implied, of the defendant without a general waiver, defendant shall be brought to trial on that date when the date for trial, or within 10 days whereafter. And it says that whenever a case is set for trial after the defendant enters either a general waiver or request or consents, express or implied, to the setting of trial date beyond 60-day period, the court may not grant a motion for the defendant to vacate the date set for trial and to set an earlier date unless all parties are properly noticed and court finds good cause. And so I'm thinking that them scheduling your trial so many months after, and you're not, they're trying to say that your implicit consent is by you not saying no, but they're basically forcing you to do it. They're not letting you have a chance to say no.
Well, I did say no. So I did say no, and I already did file a writ of mandamus for their violation of PC 1382. So I've already filed on the record my objection to it. I have filed a writ of mandamus and served them for violating PC 1382. I have demanded a speedy trial. I have put it all over the record. I've said it right there in court. I said I have objected to everything.
Yeah, and it says here that if the defendant is not represented by counsel, defendant shall not be deemed to have consented to the date for the trial unless the court has explained to the defendant their rights and the effect of their consent. So basically, you're getting more protection if you're pro se than if you have a lawyer, because your lawyer is not explaining to you your rights and the effect of consent or not consenting. Your lawyer is just taking control and doing what she wants against your will. And you don't even want her as your lawyer. Like, I've never heard of somebody being forced like that.
I have objected to her on the record so many times. And I've made it very clear that I do not agree to any time waiver that I demanded. And I know that that trial has to be within 60 days, and I wanted it to be within 60 days. And that is why I have fired her. And even the district attorney at this point has moral turpitude and is committing felonies, because I've made it clear to her as well that I demand a speedy trial. And she knows that she's violating PC 1382, and so is the judicial officer, Polly Haisha Shamoon, who is very aware of my demand for a speedy trial, who I've said on the record to her face for it, and she has intentionally violated all of the defendant's constitutional rights.
And so tell us some more about the conditions of Las Colinas, where you're currently being held in custody.
So Las Colinas is run by the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. They work closely with these judicial officers and the district attorney. At this point, they've done pretty much everything they could to cruel and unusually punish me. They have starved me. They've withheld my medical diet unless I give them blood. They've locked me in my room for days at a time.
This call will be terminated in 2 minutes.
Unless I give them my DNA, which is against my religion. They patronize me. They badger me. They call me names. They try to embarrass me in front of the other girls. It's gotten so severe that other women in here have been crying and come to me and pulled me to the side and said, "We feel so sorry for what they're doing to you. We wish we could help. If these women help me, then they'll take away their commissary, or they'll give them a new charge, or they'll move them out of here." It's pretty extreme, the retaliation and the level they're going to.
So this is a private for-profit prison, and they're completely violating your human rights, civil rights, parental rights.
Yes.
And
Everything.
And have you tried to complain? Have you tried to make complaints?
Oh, yeah. I've written so many grievances. I filed a cruel and unusual punishment affidavits. I put it on the record. I've gone to the federal court about this.
This call will be terminated in 1 minute.
I have friends and family calling in to this jail. I have done everything. I've filed internal affairs reports. Everything possible.
Can you restart it one more time? Sorry.
Yes, I will.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so you guys, this is Ellie, and she's literally been held in prison without bail for 9 months, and everybody should be supporting her right now because this is absolutely ridiculous what they're doing to her.
Hello, this is a free call from
Elle Ballester.
an incarcerated person at the Las Colinas Detention and Reentry Facility. This call is being recorded. If you are an attorney, physician, or religious advisor and would like to speak to your client without being recorded, you must first contact the Sheriff's Department at 858-285-2051 during normal business hours. If you proceed with this call, you do so with the understanding that this telephone call is non-confidential, will be recorded by the Sheriff's Department, and may be shared with other law enforcement entities upon request. If you agree to have this call recorded and wish to proceed with this call, please continue. Otherwise, you should terminate this call now. Please select from the following options. If you consent to this call being recorded, and to accept this call, dial 1 now. To reject, your call has been accepted.
Hey. Okay, so continue. You were talking about the terrible conditions they have you in, right?
Yeah, so it's just very evident that it's a clear retaliation. I've lost probably 40 pounds at this point. It's been tough, but I have my faith in God still, so that's what's keeping me going through. And I know that this too shall pass and will be over at some point. But yeah, I filed internal affairs reports. I filed affidavits. I have done so many grievances. I've written to the medical staff here. Most recently, they locked me in my room for 7 days, barely fed me the smallest amount of food possible. I asked to see a doctor. They wouldn't bring one to see me. Nobody would come speak to me. I asked to speak to sergeants. Nobody would come. So it's just a situation that I'm in.
And so I know that there's been issues with during your hearings in the criminal case that the Zoom link will stop working, that they will kick people out. What can the public do right now to help you, and what can people that are listening do to help you?
You know, I'm trying to figure that out because I have asked for this case to be public since day one. They've taken me into private courtrooms. They've, as you just said, turned off Zoom access. They've tried to say that this involves minors so nobody can listen. They've kicked my family out of the courtroom. They've done anything to try to keep it private. I think the biggest thing, I guess, would be to, if there's anyone in San Diego on the ground who can come to my next court date on January 16th. I mean, anyone can file a petition for writ of habeas corpus on Eleanor LeClaire Ballester, which is the name of the defendant, on the behalf of Eleanor LeClaire Ballester. Anyone can petition the federal court to release me from this unlawful kidnapping. So people sending in letters to the federal courts. The judicial officer on the case, her name is Linda Lopez. People can send her mail. People can send mail to the Court of Appeals Ninth Circuit, which is in Sacramento or San Francisco, I guess. People can call into Las Colinas and demand my release as much as possible, I guess, is what we have to do at this point.
And are there some habeas petitions that are pending that have not been dismissed currently?
Right, yes, I have a habeas petition in the United States District Court, Southern District of California. That case is 324 CV, like cat violin, 01738. It's also under appeal in the United States Court of Appeals, Ninth Circuit. I think that case is 247403. But as far as that goes, other people can send in writ of habeases on my behalf and demand my release and demand habeas relief for me as well. So that would help. And it's just a short, simple page. You just write a one-page document. You say, I demand the release of Eleanor LeClaire Ballester from her unlawful and unconstitutional arrest or detainment or false imprisonment, and send it to the district court, which is 333 West Broadway, San Diego, California, 92101.
And if anybody would like to write you an email or schedule a video visit with you or reach out to you for more ways to help you, would you be willing to accept people to reach out?
Of course. Of course, yes. I think you can find me on the San Diego Sheriff's website, and you can find me under the name Eleanor LeClaire Ballester, and you can send me emails to help. You can add me and do a video call or whatever might be. And honestly, like, all the prayers for my 5 children who are strongly missing their mother, and my husband who's really suffering right now as well.
And so this, I know it's really difficult now with the holidays right around the corner. Is there anything that you would like a message to send out there for your children? Just, I know you can't talk to them directly, but if there was something that you wish that they could know,
I mean, I think I'm just going to have to let God handle that, because they're also coming at me and saying I can't have any third-party contact either. So I want to be careful while I'm under their custody, that they don't retaliate or try to hurt me more for even trying to help my own children, which is wild. But I just know that any support that is given to their mother will help them, right? Because they love me and they want me to be okay and they want me to be out of here, so...
Yes, and I totally understand, because I know how it goes with these orders that they put in, but I'm sure that they know and that they can feel the love that you have, and even if you're physically away from them, you're always going to be connected, and as a mother, you're always going to have that connection and bond, and nobody can ever break that.
Yes, I know that, and I trust that too. My children are very smart. They're very spiritual, they're very grounded, and I know that they know the truth, and they'll always know the truth, so.
Yeah, and, one day they're going to be able to see these transcripts, and one day they're going to look and they're going to see exactly how hard you really fought for them, and your federal lawsuits that you filed, and all of these things. You're creating your truth and your record on the record, so that's always going to be there.
Right, absolutely. The truth always comes to the light, so I trust in that.
And it's a public record, in case people don't realize, like, federal lawsuits, anybody can go on and Google and see and read your complaints and read these things and see the terrible injustices that have happened.
Right. And I mean, on the other side of the public record, these judicial officers try to control it themselves. So they'll try to commit so much fraud and say absolutely unconstitutional, unlawful things, and they lie and they create stories. And I think it's important for the public to know that these lawyers, really, because that's what they are, they're lawyers that then become judicial officers, are just using their skills of lying and legal fiction to make up stories that really harm. They're really harming people. They're really harming children. They're really harming women. They're really harming men. And they just sit there and laugh all the way to the bank.
Yeah, it's really horrible, and it's like they don't care what the damage that they're doing to the children over time and the psychological damage, and it just destroys and tears apart families, and it's destroying our youth and really the future generation as a whole.
I think that might potentially be the goal, because it just creates more clients for them in their system, right? The more harm that they can cause, and they can raise these children to come right into their system. And that's what we have to do as women and men and people that are aware of this, is to just stand up and make sure that doesn't happen to these children.
And so your goal now is, immediate goal is to get released from prison, and first things first, to get out, and second things second, to get this case and these charges dismissed.
Exactly, yes. My goal is to be released from here, this unlawful kidnapping, this torture, this cruel and unusual punishment, to then have the malicious prosecution and false charges dismissed and the case settled and closed, and then move on slowly and repair my life one step at a time, and hopefully have my children safely returned to me by who I feel is their actual kidnapper, who's holding them against their will and actually instilling fear in them. And then hopefully my family can heal in the future and move forward.
And have you had any luck from any organizations? Like I know, I think you had mentioned like the Innocence Project and some of these other organizations. Have any of them made contact with you?
No, they haven't.
Okay, so you are right now looking for anybody who can possibly help you, whether it's getting a habeas on your behalf or anything at all. Anybody who thinks that they can offer any help, you're all ears.
Yes, I'm all ears, and I would totally appreciate it, even just a prayer for me and my children.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I'm going to keep praying for you and everybody. We need all the prayers that we can get. And, for a mom of 5 to be in prison with no criminal record, never even had a speeding ticket, literally being held without bail.
Well, I've had 2 speeding tickets, so I'm not perfect, but I've had 2 speeding tickets.
Well, yeah. Those don't count. I mean, seriously, you've never been arrested, like, your first time getting arrested and them to put you without bail, like, it's unheard of.
Yeah, I know, especially in a state that's supposed to be democratic.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like they go so much towards, like, the fatherhood rights that they end up villainizing mothers, and it's like, they automatically think if a mother brings up domestic violence or abuse or something like that, oh, she must be a bitter ex-wife. She must be just, trying to hurt the father. And then it's like, once they label you as a problem, or if somebody has a connection and fraud happens, it's so hard. They will never turn around and admit that they did something wrong.
Well, it's wild because it's so obvious that I'm not bitter, because I'm the one that did get remarried and moved on and had 2 new babies and was restarting my life. So I don't know how they could turn that and make that a reality when I was the one that wanted the divorce. I was the one that moved on. I was the one that got remarried. And then my ex is sitting there not dating anyone, not remarried, obsessing, filing things every single week about me and my new husband, everything he can find, every Instagram story I post, every Instagram picture I post, he's filing it in the court records. And I also tried very hard to stay out of the court and to keep all these issues private for as long as possible. So,
yeah, and it's like, seems like he's stalking you to be looking at your profiles like that, and then, using little things like that to try to get a restraining order, it makes it so that when people who are actual victims go and ask for a restraining order, then they don't get taken seriously because people abuse the system.
Yeah, I learned the hard way as a woman that if you report rape, you end up being the one put in jail. So now that I know that, I can see it, and I know why that happens. Heaven forbid that an attractive woman actually be the victim of rape, or just any woman actually be the victim of rape. So
yeah, and it's like, of course they're gonna say, oh yeah, this person lied or deny it. Like, nobody's gonna be like, oh yeah, I did rape them, oh yeah, I'm guilty. Like, and so their go-to excuse is to just try to discredit the person, discredit the victim, destroy their reputation, and then if that doesn't work, they try to put you in jail. And it's scary because it's happening like all over the country. And it's like, same thing with me. It's like, I reported sexual abuse, I was accused of lying, I've lost custody, and they handed the child over to the person who was allowing her to be sexually abused in his care. And so it's like, if I had just kept my mouth shut and allowed it and not said anything, then maybe I'd still have my daughter. But the fact that I spoke up, tried to report the abuse and get help and justice was used against me. So it's like, it's so backwards, and it's because like I feel like there's...
Well, it's a double-edged sword, because in some states they actually will criminalize women that don't stand up and say something. So, I mean, it puts women in a very difficult position, because if you do say something, they can turn against you. If you don't say something, they can turn against you. So it's just such a hard line to walk.
Yeah, but all the father has to do is say, oh no, she's lying, that's not true, and deny it, and then he gets full custody, he gets everything, they throw the mother in jail, and they just want you to just disappear. And it's like, I feel like, you know, you should give yourself a lot of credit for...
Will be terminated in 2 minutes.
Well, I do know that this unfortunate situation does happen to some men too, so I don't know that it's necessarily so much a father versus mother, but I think they're very good at determining which person is the liar and which person cares about the children more, who has the money and who doesn't, and then baiting those parents against each other to cause a lot of controversy, and then using the one that they think is more manipulated or more vindictive or more angry, and they kind of use them as a puppet to get the other parent in jail. And so I think it can really happen to anyone, as long as the right ingredients are involved.
Yeah, that's true. It's like they give preference to the abuser, whether it's the mom or the dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, either they're very good at determining who is the more abusive one, who's the one that's more upset and vindictive or wants to retaliate because of the divorce, and then they use them like a puppet to cause a lot of harm so that they can hide behind them.
Yeah, and the scary thing is
This call will be terminated in 1 minute.
Well, thank you for helping me and getting my story out there.
Yeah, and I just want to say you need to give yourself credit because you're so strong and you've been holding yourself together in there through horrific conditions. And so I will, I'm going to be sharing this on all major platforms and get this message out there. Everybody needs to show some support to Ellie. She needs everybody's support right now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sending you love.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye.